Hi, my name is Leah Casanda. I'm a planner working with DELDOT on the SR1 Low Stress Bikeway study. This presentation is a version of the same presentation that was given at the June 20th public workshop held at Cape Henlopen High School cafeteria. If you weren't able to join, this is a great way to catch up with what you missed, and you are still able to provide comments and feedback via the website that you're watching this video on. Before I get into our topic, would like to remind you all of DELDOT's motto, which is excellence in transportation, every trip, every mode, every dollar, every one. We really want to make sure as we work on all of our projects that are in planning and design across the state that we are keeping these principles in mind. Also want to provide a brief overview of our recent traffic fatalities on our roads. You'll see there under fatalities the number 66. That was as of June 12th. Which is a little bit lower than the number of fatalities we had last year at this time, which was 68, but significantly higher than back in 2021, where we only had 47 fatalities at this time. So we do, safety on our roads is paramount. So please encourage your friends, neighbors, family, drive slow, buckle up, practice safety as we work together to implement the strategic highway safety plan. So the goals of the SR1 Bikeway study is to threefold: to improve actual and perceived safety for people who bike in the vicinity of Route 1, and that's between Lewis and Rehoboth; provide better access to businesses for people who walk and bike. For example, right now, someone who lives in a neighborhood directly adjacent to Route 1 may not be able to get to that business without driving in order to safely access it. And, if people do have the opportunity to elect to walk or bike safely, well, we hope that that will reduce vehicular traffic. And while not everyone is going to choose to walk or bike, if people who are interested in doing so have the opportunity, that will reduce congestion on our roadways and make those who do need to drive feel, hopefully have less congestion when doing so. So this map depicts the transportation network that we really are looking at with this study. So you can see here depicted in blue are existing trails and pathways, and also shown in the scale of like green to red are our existing roadway network. This shows level of traffic stress, which is essentially how safe it feels, how stressful it feels to bike on the roadway, as is. Green streets are low stress. Often you'll see, they're neighborhood streets, and that's most of the streets out there. But what'll happen is as you travel through your neighborhood, you may come out to a higher stress street, and those are shown in the yellow and red colors that are not safe to bike on. So how can we begin to close those gaps so you can actually walk out your front door, get on your bike, and ride safely to access destinations or your nearest trail? And the highlighted area is really where we're honing in for this study. So although we're looking at a little bit more broadly with connectivity, the areas we're identifying for improvements are really hugging the Route 1 corridor as shown on the screen. So what we really hope to do is really identify locations for low stress crossings over 1, and also low stress routes on either side of Route 1. So we have that ladder graphic on the right. So that's kind of what we're looking to do, is have crossings or our rungs and the parallel routes on the side there. And then work with you and some technical analysis to figure out which segments should be prioritized for design and construction. And why do we care about low stress? There's been a lot of research, and this graphic is from Federal Highway Administration, that shows the vast majority of riders, you can see here 51 to 56% of the total bicycling population, consider themselves interested but concerned. So those are people who maybe aren't comfortable riding with traffic or on road. They might even use a sidewalk to ride on, even if a bike lane is available. They prefer separate facilities. And those people have a low stress tolerance. They're comfortable maybe out right now on the Georgetown to Lewis Trail, but not riding on our roadways. And we do have people who are highly confident, but that is a much smaller portion of the population. Those are our avid road riders. They have a higher stress tolerance, but we want to make sure when we're making investments in our transportation network for people biking and walking that the vast majority of people can use it, not the select few. So we've been moving to implement lower stress facilities that are comfortable for riders of all ages and abilities. And this chart is one that is included in the draft DEL.DOT Complete Streets Design Guide, which kind of helps us figure out what type of bike facility is appropriate on a road, given how fast cars are traveling, and you see that across the bottom of your screen, the speed, and also how many cars are on a road. So you see that on the y-axis, the volume of roads. So we can basically look at a given roadway in the study area or anywhere in the state and say, okay, we know, what the posted speed limit is, and we're also able to do studies and have some access to some data that tells us what speed people are actually traveling, and then look at how many cars are on the road, and that's also data that's available, and decide whether, is a shared lane or a share-o appropriate, and that's really only on very low speed, low volume streets, again, those neighborhood streets. Is a bike lane appropriate? And that works pretty okay if, speeds are 30 miles an hour or lower and it's only, around 6,000 or fewer cars a day. Or do we need to have a separated facility? And pretty much if you're looking at speeds around 35 miles per hour and volumes, tending towards 7,000 or more, and that's average annual daily volumes, we are looking at more of a separated facility. Of course, in the beach communities too, we know in the summertime those average annual volumes are even higher, and there's more people biking too, so that separation, given most of the roads in the study area that are not neighborhood local streets are pretty high speed and more importantly high volume, we're really looking at a lot of facilities that are separated for this effort. So we've been working on this project for quite some time. And what we've done to date is we started with conversations with some key community stakeholders, did a lot of site visits, biked the corridor, took a lot of photos. We analyzed some data, that level of traffic stress network I already told you about, as well as some data from a platform called Streetlight. Last summer we were out and held pop-up outreach events on the trails and conducted a survey. We then kind of came back and used DEL.DOT's bike travel and network models to analyze some crossing locations I'll talk about in a moment. Had a public workshop this past November and a survey, and also coordinated with DEL.DOT traffic and operations regarding potential crossing and facility improvements. So we're back here tonight to really share some exciting projects in the pipeline and collect some feedback from you on some additional connections in the vicinity of those projects. So we already talked about level of traffic stress, but I mentioned briefly kind of a network model looking at how we can analyze improvements using this. So we know this network shows us where people will bike if they have a lower stress tolerance. So again, where that majority of our biking population is comfortable riding. And we also know what our population density is. And this map, the darker red the area, the more people live there. So we're basically able to connect the dots and say, okay, so we know where people live, where they originate, and we know the network they can use. So with that, we can begin to calculate which projects will benefit the most households. So, we can't invest in all of our improvements at once. There's just not enough resources to do that. So how do we prioritize improvements? And the first cut at that we did, and those of you who were at our November workshop heard about these crossing evaluations we took a look at. We really plugged all of these locations into DEL.DOT's mobility model to look at which crossing improvement would connect the most people, most households, to the most destinations. And the destinations we're looking at are shown here in this pie chart. So public transportation centers, employment, places of employment, schools, community centers, and existing parks and trail systems. So, we plugged all those locations in, and you see on the right-hand side a bar chart that got spit out. So what that showed was that the location with the most connectivity benefits to a low-stress connection is actually the 5 Points intersection. But I'm sure those of you who are familiar with the area know right now, the way that intersection is configured is not going to support a crossing anytime soon. More on that in a little bit. Also, further south on the corridor, Shuttle Road came out scoring highly, as well as Miller and Munchy Branch. We're going to hear more about that tonight. Phillips Street and Rehoboth Avenue. So Shuttle, Phillips, and Rehoboth are all kind of clustered in the same area at this bottom end of the corridor. So here again is that map depicting those high-ranking locations. Number 1, 5 Points up here in the north, Munchy Branch and Miller, kind of in the middle of our study area, and then Shuttle Road and also Phillips and Church Street on the southern end of our study area. So I'm going to go through these locations one by one to give you an update on where they stand. So first though, here's a chart that shows, how each of those locations listed north to south ranked in the model. So again, 5 Points 1, Shuttle 2, Munchy Branch 3, and Phillips 4. This winter when we came out, we also asked the public which locations would be most beneficial. And although we had pretty limited responses to that survey, the public agreed with the 5 Points intersection. Also, we heard Munchy Branch Road was a very high priority. Shuttle Road came in at 5th. A number of folks commented that Old Landing Road and SR24 would be a benefit. But the way those streets are configured, 24 is kind of a T intersection. It's not a straight crossing. And Old Landing has some issues as well. That makes crossing in those locations a little challenging. But to quickly review 5 Points. So I'm sure those of you who live in the area may have heard about the 5 Points Working Group. That is a body of folks who have been volunteering for many years to help DelDOT identify and prioritize improvements in this area. And right now we do have a number of projects in the pipeline surrounding the 5 Points intersection that will improve circulation for people walking and biking. That includes the Plantation Road project, which is currently under construction, the realignment of Old Orchard Road at Westcote's Corner, as well as the Minos-Conway grade separated intersection. So you may ask, well, what about 5 Points itself? And what we have found through analyzing the area is that we cannot get in to implement any changes to the 5 Points intersection until we improve the surrounding roadway network. We need to make sure that people traveling, whether by car or bike or walking, have other ways to get around and across Route 1 to navigate through the 5 Points area. Because if we were to go in and attempt to make improvements at 5 Points right now, it would totally shut down traffic circulation. So these 3 projects are 3 examples of ways we're kind of getting ready to tackle 5 Points. We are also evaluating. So as far as other intersections we can begin to look at, on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see the Marsh and Shady Road intersection circled. And we're looking at that right now as a potential location for a low-stress crossing or at-grade crossing because the 5 Points intersection improvements are a little ways out yet. So that is under evaluation. We will be back to share more on that effort later this year. Of course, right now on the far left of your screen, you see the blue circle, and that is highlighting the existing crossing of Route 1 in this vicinity at the Georgetown-Lewis Trail. So that's really the only way right now you can get across Route 1 if you're walking or biking. And of course, getting access to the trail is challenging too from off of Route 9. So it's kind of limited right now in this vicinity. Existing paths, again, shown in blue. And paths that are funded and will be under construction soon. Just south of the 5 Points intersection, you see some dark purple lines along Plantation Road. Those will be side paths constructed as part of that construction project. And then extending further down Plantation Road, there will be a phase 2 to that project. So that's the dotted purple line shown as a planned pathway. A little further up Route 1 in the Nassau area, you see more purple lines, and that's the side path that's going to be constructed as part of the Minos-Conway grade separated intersection project. So that will provide a connection from Minos-Conway on the west side of 1 and from the Georgetown to Lewis Trail intersection all the way south along the west side of 1, tying into those Plantation Road trails and pathways. Kind of northeast of 1, where it says Old Orchard Road, we do have additional side paths that are being built along Old Orchard Road, as you can see there, which will tie in to the existing side path on Marsh Road near a lot of those new hotels that have been built recently in the I.G. Burton dealership. And then up on the very top of your screen along New Road, there is also a planned pathway connection under consideration right now along New Road, and then connecting into those Old Orchard Road improvements at the top. So again, a number of low stress facilities in various stages of planning, design, and construction in the case of Plantation Road coming soon for better interconnectivity here. But again, we're still looking at the crossing over one piece of this is kind of where we're at in this portion of the corridor. So that brings us to the intersections that scored second and fourth in the crossing analysis, Shuttle Road and Church Street and Phillips Street. And those are kind of down near the Rehoboth Avenue split. There is a traffic study underway to better understand our options to connect residents and businesses on the west side of 1 to the Junction Breakwater Trail in downtown Rehoboth in that area. So here is a map kind of showing the Shuttle Road area circled in red right in the middle of your screen, as well as the Phillips Street and Church Street intersection also circled in red on the right side of your screen. There are existing crossings in this area. Right up at Holland Road, there is a hawk signal that allows you to cross currently. And then right at the Rehoboth Avenue split, there is the multi-stage crossing that has a hawk signal on the southbound leg, and then you have to wait for the signals to turn to kind of get across all of the legs of Route 1 and Rehoboth Avenue. So we know those crossings exist. Also, we've received feedback from a number of you as we've done outreach for this that the crossing is not very comfortable. It takes a very long time to get across the street in that location. So again, looking at some other areas, and then once we determine whether crossings are feasible or not, again, better tying into the surrounding trail network. You can see on the north side there, northeast side, the Junction Breakwater Trail ties in on Hebron Road, and then the connection over to Rehoboth Avenue and the canal. So that leaves us with our kind of third priority intersection, which is Munchy Branch Road and Miller Road. And this is actually really the focus of the rest of our workshop, as well as the projects that are going to be presented this evening. If you were not in attendance at the live workshop, you'll see on the project website there are a number of links to PDFs of boards that were presented at the workshop. And once you have a chance to listen to this presentation and review those boards, if you have questions, you can forward them to us and we can answer them for you. So there are already a number of pathway projects in the vicinity of Munchy Branch and Miller Road. So I'm going to go through those one at a time. One is some improvements up near Kings Highway. That phase 2 of Plantation Road I alluded to earlier in the presentation. And then numbers 3 through 6 are where we're focusing Old Landing Road and Warrington Road intersection improvements, the Airport Road extension project, Munchy Branch Road pathway phase 2, and actual improvements at the Miller Road Munchy Branch Road crossing as part of the HEPP program. So here's a map showing all those projects. Up in the very top of your screen, you'll see side path improvement shown there, kind of heading off on Kings Highway. Number 2 shows that Plantation Road connection coming down to SR24 and tying into the existing pathway along Warrington Road. Number 3 is that Old Landing Road and Warrington Road intersection improvement, which will include tentatively a side path along Warrington Road, tying into, again, that developer project, and then extending north up Old Landing Road. And then number 4 on the map is the Airport Road extension project. So that will continue that side path up Old Landing Road and then along Airport Road itself, tying up to the Munchy Branch Miller Road intersection with 1. Then that intersection improvement itself is right there. And then lastly, Munchy Branch Road pathway phase 2 is denoted by number 5 on the map. So that's kind of the overall connectivity we're looking at. And as you can see, that really will allow folks to ride basically from the 5 Points area on Plantation Road parallel to 1 down to this area, and then up and cross over at the Munchy Branch intersection and get back to Wolfe Road, which provides some connectivity to the Junction and Breakwater Trail and into that trail network. Of course, these paths will also allow people to get into a lot of the retail and commercial development right along 1. So with that, some more details. The SR1 and 9 intersection improvements, that project is scheduled to be implemented in advance of the bigger Kings Highway project, which will extend from 1 all the way to Freeman Highway. I'll show the concept design momentarily, but did want to let you all know that that bigger project will be hosting a public workshop later this summer or early fall, so stay tuned. If you sign up for updates on our project website, we will be sure to notify you of that workshop. And here is the concepts for intersection improvements at 1 and 9. So you see here, right now, if you're traveling northbound on 1 in a vehicle, like a motor vehicle, it's a pretty steep exit ramp, and you can take that at speed. So what is being proposed, you see kind of in the green area, is to tighten up that turning radius. So someone who is turning right onto Kings Highway will have to slow down and yield to anyone who's crossing in that sidewalk before continuing onto Kings Highway. And people biking or walking have the option to jump onto a new side path there, to use that side path and the marked crosswalks to kind of get through that area, because we do know that is a kind of pinch point where there is some conflict between people biking and driving. So again, this project would be incorporated before the Kings Highway project. Plantation Road Phase 2, again, includes side path improvements between Plantation Road Phase 1 and SR24. So that project will be also hosting a public workshop later this year. So again, if you're interested in receiving notification of that, please, in your comments, let us know. We'll add you. So that was a lot of information. And what's really next for us, we're going to continue our traffic analysis at the Marsh and Shady Road intersection and in the vicinity of Shovel Road, and continue to refine our concepts based on what we hear from you. We'll also finalize our route and prioritization recommendations and put together some high-level concept designs and planning-level cost estimates as we work to prepare a final report later this year. So with that, I encourage you to take a look. The list of projects on the left, there are materials on the project website available. So please, you can scan that QR code to visit the online website or type in that URL to check out what is available on the website. There is a survey as well where you can provide detailed comments on each of the projects we present or the SR1 study broadly. And also feel free, if you don't have a comment but you have some questions, type those in. We'll be leaving the comment period open through the end of July. So no rush. Please forward the website to your friends and neighbors and encourage them to give us your feedback. And we will take all that in and, as I said, be back with you to update you on this project later this year. So thank you. This website will be live, so check back for updates and have a great day.